Greetings, everyone. Welcome to this live Q&A on a very interesting topic. I feel sort of like the seriousness, the importance of exploring this topic in depth at this time. And I want to say a disclaimer because I feel like, I'm realizing that my perspectives are quite philosophically deep. We definitely on these lives end up with our collaborative energy going down some deep philosophical rabbit holes. And so I just want to say, if that's not your cup of tea, if you're looking for some more factual intel, then, I invite you to move along to other channels and resources that are offering that. This to me is a very, very important topic. And as such, I'm wanting to create space for a lot of different perspectives on it, and also to maybe go in a few different directions that the general conversation around AI, artificial intelligence, I'm not seeing a lot of certain types of perspectives coming in. A lot of more or less, kind of black and white for or against, and the various different versions of that. So I'm looking at people coming on. Good morning. Lovely to see you. And my dear friend, WK, because I'm not going to try to pronounce your name. I believe from Poland. It's lovely to see your comments and referring to how Matthias Di Stefano has said that AI is a mineral world dominion as it runs through silicon. And this will create sentient mind, through which we will be able to communicate. Wow. Okay, that is such a powerful jumping off point, because I absolutely agree that the components that make up AI, the actual physical components, if we're talking about a technology, on some level, we're talking about earth-based elemental components. So regardless of what the technology is, if it's, nuclear fission, if it's silicone, copper, all these different elements that are present here on our planet. And I actually believe that each of these elements has its own, I want to say, spiritual nature. And right off the bat, we're going to call the elephant out in the room. I love doing that these days. And that is really what we're looking at, is a conversation about the energy of soul. The energy of soul, and how appropriate it is for us in our current state of trauma, disassociation, confusion, energetic breaking through old, long-standing consequences and overlays of energetic power dominance. So when you're in a system like that, when you've been encultured in a system like that, when you've been educated in a system like that, whether we have good heart and soul integrity or not, basically the first reference point to me is we're not coming at this in an ideal state. And when we're talking about manipulating soul energy intentionally on a mass scale, that has already had tremendous consequences on our planet. The manipulation of the soul energy of technology. I mean, you can go all the way back to the story of Prometheus bringing the first fire to humanity, and how it's a blessing, and the technology has given us so much. And it's also given us the illusion that we're able to manage responsibly and integrally with our soul's purpose. It's like we've been given really big power, and yet we're still, in terms of our emotional and spiritual evolution and intelligence, we are not in a super great state. I mean, you just have to look around at the planet, and that's pretty obvious. So it doesn't mean we're not capable of that. It doesn't mean we're not capable of fast evolution, but what it means is the time span where these increases in rapid increases in higher and higher technology, like nuclear fission and, you know, atomic technology and all of this artificial intelligence and silicone, you know, creating these networks, all of this aspect has happened so quickly during a time when we are clearly still in a extremely vulnerable, triggered, I want to say programmed state. And so the first analogy when I was sort of tuning into this energy of artificial intelligence and where do we go from here, the first analogy that came to me was the vision of, you know, children, especially I have to say little boys playing war games out in the sandbox or in the playground. And, you know, why are they playing war games? Well, you can say it's part of the innate nature of the masculine energy. And yet it's also, we know we are beings that have been raised and influenced and programmed in a warring worldview, at least for the last several hundred, if not few thousand years. So there's been this power dominant worldview around domination. Our young men are sort of encultured to play those games out. Back in the old days, it was literally, you know, little guns that were like sticks. And now it's like, you know, the games on the video games, virtual. And then you get into these, you know, sophisticated groups of highly intellectual, creative minded, I want to say still though, quite naive, childlike energies that are gathering together and coming up with these ideas, which to me feel like an expanded game, an expanded domination, power, let's pretend game. And I just, before coming on to do this live this morning, I just tuned in and watched an interview between Tucker Carlson and Elon Musk. And I'll put a link to that below after the live is finished. It was very illuminating. And I want to say, you know, obviously it's great to be getting all this stuff out on the table and talking about it. And I applaud both Tucker Carlson and Elon Musk for speaking to the importance of, you know, managing the future of AI in what they're calling a responsible way, which includes, you know, putting in place all these legislations around how AI is worked with, and, you know, standards and ethics and so on. And I, of course, you know, obviously that is absolutely essential. And I get that they are, you know, addressing that, and that's fantastic. I also, my instincts and my intuition were deeply triggered by the conversation around, you know, what it felt like was I was listening to these kind of attitudes around, you know, oh, yeah, we concocted this, but we got it wrong, or, we opened up these platforms, but shucks, maybe we should have been more careful. So now we're going to open up another one and be careful. Um, uh, to me, the naivety is just like screaming, you know, and even the laughter, like there was a reference to um, Elon Musk being termed by one of his pals in the AI creation world as a speciesist. And then he and Tucker Carlson were laughing about it. And I was like, wow, it's not funny to me. Like there's something abstract about all this. And then of course they got around to the obvious end point of the conversation, which was soul. You know, it do we have a soul? And Elon Musk saying, I haven't decided. I haven't decided if we have a soul. And therefore, can AI, integrate a soul? Well, if we don't even have a soul, then what kind of AI are we creating that could even potentially ever move in that direction? Like it was just layer upon layer upon layer to me of revelatory awareness about the energy and the mindset that's dabbling in these areas. So, on the one hand, we have the extraordinary reality of, silicon, copper, all of these elemental mineral kingdom sentient qualities that have extraordinary abilities in terms of, relaying, communicating, um, allowing us to tune into almost like a hive mind energy, which of course the internet has shown us what that can feel like. And it's very, very attractive. I want to pull back even a little further and go, I actually have learned through all of the wisdom that I've worked with throughout my years of exploration that we have this in our own beings. We are actually elemental. We have these aspects. We have these minerals in our bodies. They're in our blood, they're in our bones. We already have super technology. And when you get into the quantum realm, when you get into working with intuition and our powers of manifestation with our thoughts and our intentions, it's like it just opens up this plethora of we don't even have an inkling of what we already have in our physical human form. And if we haven't explored that, then placing the exploration outside of us into this realm of, it's sort of like, well, we can understand the elemental silicon and the elemental copper, and we can work in those elementals and create something and start manipulating it and directing it, just like we did with atomic energy and so on. It's like, but we don't even understand how that operates inside of us. And so, one more thing, and then I'm going to pull cards on all of this. Just, I don't feel like we're going to come to any really obvious big conclusions today, but I'm intending that we will open up our minds, our hearts, our souls to reveal more of the intricacy and the beauty of the place that we're at. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I want to go back one more thing. When I had the analogy of the children playing out in the sandbox, with these war games, these, sticks and stones, but it's turned into pretty big uh, weapons. And AI, of course, in the wrong hands becomes a weapon. So what I was shown was the vision of these kids playing, and then, the kid throws a great big rock and it goes through the window of the house, and parents come out and it's like, go to your room. That's enough. You've gotten too big, too strong. to, unmanageable. And now you're playing with things that are dangerous to uh, more of the whole. And the intelligence, the greater intelligence of the creator energy, to me, will not let that go very far. Um, it's there's a built-in mechanism of we're only going to be able to do so much without the consequences basically negating the the will. Does that make sense? It's sort of like you create such a mess that you are ultimately destroyed by the mess. And I understand for the majority of you watching, you're likely in a position of, well, I didn't create that mess. They created that mess. So let's go into, I looked up the definition of the two words because etymology is often a really great way to start to go in deeply philosophically to a topic. If you actually see what it is that we're saying, we're spell casting when we're saying these words. Where do these words originate from, and why have these words been chosen? Interestingly, Elon Musk said that they call AI in Silicon Valley land, they jokingly refer to it as artificial insemination. And they were laughing about that. I was like, wow, this is really wild. What these are people that are, you know, designing these games. They're designing these games. So let's look at the word artificial. And this is in the online etymology dictionary. Okay, let me see here. A substitute for what is natural, um, fictitious, assumed, and not genuine. That's from the 1640s interpretation of the definition of the word, and full of affectation and insincere. So, not genuine, assumed, fictitious, insincere. Those are the original meanings of the word artificial. Okay, so think about that for a minute. Hold that in your thoughts. We're looking at insincere, fictitious, and not genuine. And then we go to the word intelligence. Okay. Let me see here. Sorry. Discerning, appreciative. Let's see. Between. The word inter is assimilated from the root word, um, which means to choose, pick out, or to discern. And so intelligence is really about having the ability to discern. Oh, yeah. Understanding, knowledge, power of discerning. So if intelligence is the power of discerning and artificial is the power of deceiving, how do we put those together? How do you put discerning and deceiving together? It's a oxymoron. It's a conundrum. It like just even the words that we're using to describe these things, but what we're basically saying is we're agreeing to go into ingenuine, meaning artificial discernment. Yeah, deceiving your discernment. Thanks, Sue. So think about it. Like how even just the ideology around that, it creates a whole philosophical mess, really. And That's a good place to start, I believe. Let's see now what our guides together. And when I say our guides, as always, I'm referring to the energies that are present here, aligned with the greater good of all, in a heart centered, power neutral frequency of love. So, what does creator energy, what does divine consciousness and love have to say about where we're at with artificial intelligence? We're going to just start with where are we at, and then we'll go on to where do we go from here? Where are we at? The cards are jumping around. No surprise. Where are we at? Here we are, children. The inner child card comes up. That's us. You know, it's okay. It's okay that we're naive and childlike. And where are we at? We're at a place of division, polarity, and integration. Polarity and integration. The Two of Pentacles is a big choice or a big decision around two paths, two important opposite things that are wanting to be resolved or at least balanced, right? You see that? Do you see how holding these two opposite polarized perspectives create, if they, if one overtakes the other, it destabilizes the character and eventually they can't keep juggling. They're going to fall over. So there's something very powerful about this whole experiment of artificiality and, the games that we are playing here on planet Earth. It's not bad, but we've come to a place where the consequences are going to start destabilizing us if we don't consider the other perspective. Does that make sense? It does to me. Okay, so the gift card in the past, the tangible gift, working with the mineral kingdom, working with the gifts of technology that have been brought in from other dimensions, from other, solar systems or galaxies, the actual gifts, and even the minerals themselves, their origin points. They have a wisdom, they have an intelligence. And I feel like, it's interesting. It's almost like they are working with us. So I do feel quite hopeful so far with this layout that we're being guided and supported. Oh, wow. Yeah. Spiritual warrior. The spiritual warrior is in the center right now. So, when we see these children playing in the playground in the sandbox and their weapons are starting to get a little bit out of hand, it's not about punishing them for playing. It's about creating a safe place for them to sort of explore that. Does that make sense? Interesting. The guides are saying, if you had a kid that was exploring, making bombs in the garage or something for, because they were getting carried away with their war games, you'd ideally want to support them in learning more, all of the science, which includes the spiritual science. This is a spiritual card. So it's like we've got the physical sciences, and now we want to balance them with the spiritual science. Wow. Wow. Okay. Oh, yes. And the wisdom of the elder, the wisdom of time to go on a journey of reflection, an inner journey. Okay, so we've had the outer games and exploration in the material realm, and now it's the inner call, almost like to match the technology, external technology, with internal spiritual technology. And the guides are saying, okay, this is also a balancing of the right and left hemisphere. Wow. This is also a balancing of the right and left hemisphere and the masculine and feminine approach. So on one hand, we're not being encouraged to shut this down. We've got the King of Wands, creative, dynamic, the adventurer, the explorer. And then we've got the Two of Cups, balance, union, harmony, masculine, feminine, equally balanced, like devotional, loving, very mature. This card, the Wise Elder, the most mature character in the tarot, and a mature form of balance. Another number 2 card, right? So 2 of Cups, 2 of Pentacles, balancing, stabilizing, maturity. So that's what we're being guided. It's not to shut this down and say, bad kids, go to your room. No more games for you. It's to say, all right, now we need to challenge these kids. And I'm saying kids, I mean the part of us that's the naive part of us. We need to challenge it to come up to speed in the spiritual realm, in maturity. Okay, so there is at the bottom of this a fear. There's a very basic fear of abandonment, of lack, of insecurity. So insecurity is what's motivating the unhealthy expression of this. Okay, so these, let's call it the young boy energy, getting into mischief. The dark side of that, the shadow side of it, is actually low self-esteem. So the answer is not to shame that energy more, because that's going to make it worse. It's just going to drive it underground, right? It's like, oh, whoa, oh my gosh. Wow. Okay, I'm going to talk about that in a minute. Yeah, it's like, when you give your kids hack, especially when they're teenagers, that's it, you're grounded. No more of that for you. Taking away all your whatevers. And well, of course, it's going to underground it goes. So they're saying it's acknowledging there's a very big challenge around low self-esteem at the core of this, that's driving it at the speed it's going. And it's almost like we want to take that energy and reroute it into going full tilt towards spirituality at this point. The fact that these people that are creating these, sort of, you could call it even like AI monsters or whatever, it are sitting around laughing about whether or not humanity has a soul. Well, that needs to, that needs to come to the forefront. That's the really big turning point we're at. That people who have money, power, and the ability to naively play around with bigger and bigger guns, bigger and bigger weapons, bigger and bigger technologies, unbridled, like guarded, just have at it, free reign. um, and being driven by a kind of low self-esteem, which you can feel when you're listening to them talk. It's like, wow. Um, like there's a lot of ego wrapped up in all of this. Like they're trying to prove something to each other. And it's like, okay, whoa, whoa, whoa. You're got your finger on the trigger of all of our buttons here. you know? You're playing out your games of power or, um, your war games, your dominant games. Uh, you're now breaking the windows in the house. So I'm really wondering what this is about because I just got to say, when these two cards are together, and it doesn't happen very often, um, it's a really, really big wake-up call. It's a really big, like, we're down to brass tacks now. Um, and yeah, I feel energetically like the natural order of universal law is not going to let this play out much further. And again, it doesn't feel like we're supposed to just say, absolutely no, let's go back the other way and abandon technology altogether. But this naivety that we've been indulging, it's sort of like letting the kids get away with it for way too long. And it's, yeah, the consequence is going to get more and more extreme the longer we wait. All right. I'm going to go. Where did the low self-esteem come from? Well, take your pick, Sue. Great question. It's basically when we are raised in a prison overlay program of power and dominance, where we've been, sort of cultured and programmed as a slave mentality, that creates low self-esteem. And whoever the dominant characters are, they couldn't have started this enacting without a low self-esteem themselves. So it's that sort of pass the buck, it was done to you. You think you're never going to do that to others, but you end up unconsciously doing it because you can't help it. It's in your program. So all of the repair to bring healthy consciousness, the soul, into alignment with the technology, that is the priority. So it's almost like we're getting sidetracked with these conversations about regulatory bodies and open source AI and like la 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 la. And we're like, whoa, 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 whoa. We're not at a place to have. Those are like decisions about how to work with something that we're ready to embark on working with in an integral way. But yeah, it's sort of like taking those kids out of the sandbox and putting them in the classroom and saying, okay, we're going to give you rules of how to work with that. But they're still in the back of the room making their crazy stuff. We first of all got to teach them. We've got to initiate them. There has to be some kind of initiation where they actually get to mature and see themselves as souls. And the ethics is instilled through going through that maturation process. And that's why ancient cultures all had rites of passage, especially for boys, because the male mindset has the capacity to build and build and build and build, but without the spiritual soul, heart, integrity, personal sense of like cultural responsibility and wisdom and maturity to go along with that, they end up just building technology and starting to play power games with it. So the low self-esteem who knows where it started, but it's way, way, way back, and it's passed the buck, you know? I was raised like that, and now I'm dominating others. You know, it's just like the same as when people are abused in a family, and then it's very sort of possible, even though it's the last thing they would want to do, for them to go on and act that out in their adult lives, on their own families. And the ones that don't, the ones that actually do the opposite of that, they have to go through a really big healing journey to get there. So that's where we're at. We're at that place. Sending love to the world. Enough of it. It will wake up people and make AI our friend. Okay. Well, yeah. You know, I love that in the sense of that's the long-term vision. That's the long game to me. That's the like, you know, long, long game. But if we keep saying, oh, don't worry, that's the long game and we're almost there, right? Like we should just be able to do this tomorrow. Um, what I'm getting is that we're in a way being not very responsible parents. Like those of us that are aware, awake, activated, and can see that there's big decisions to be made. Um, Even if we have the awareness of where the best possible outcome of all of this is, that AI is our friend, and that, you know, we work in harmony with the natural elements. I mean, for one thing, you know, the teacher that I was educated with and in indigenous spirituality reflects how these natural elements have their own soul, and they've been literally mined and enslaved to work in the technology that we've designed. So that was that consensual, you know, like, and when you enslave any sentient being with a soul, it's going to start acting out. So like we're we're assuming that technology, you know, the silicon and the copper and all these different elements, sentient minerals that have gone into fabricating the actual physical part of the technology, that they're okay with this and that they're going to hold their spiritual integrity and do our bidding. But you know, we haven't actually had a respectful relationship to invite them into this co-creation and hear their wisdom about how they want to be used. So we're like leagues behind the beautiful potentiality of what you're describing, because we're still in a like domineering, you know, mining, stealing, taking. We're still in that energy, which stems from a feeling of lack and fear. So I feel like it's maybe a little bit naive and irresponsible for us to just imagine jumping over the huge amount of work that needs to be done between now and getting to that point. Um, okay, yeah, like Ricky, it can be used for good or destruction. And absolutely, this is right. And it's also where that's using for good. It's like um how if we've let it get to this point and left it unchecked, that it's been used already for destruction and devastation on every level on this planet, then what makes us naive enough to think that we can turn the page and suddenly start using it for good? Like, to me, this is, again, it's a bit of a dissociation. We're going out into this like realm of, wow, look what we could do. And beautiful, absolutely. And yet the work, the real soul work is right in front of us. And where do we go from here? Let's have a look at this. Where do we go from here? Yeah, no checks and balances. Oh, I like that. Artistic intelligence. Well, yeah, again, like I said, all of this is still in the realm of the imagination, which is magic and it's powerful. And in all the conversations around AI, what I hear is a lot of still, well, which way are we going to use the technology? And, um, you know, how do we, um, how do we navigate using the technology? There's no conversation about how do we approach technology, period. And are we ethically, spiritually, morally ready? Because basically, we're already in over our heads. That's pretty obvious. 10 of Swords. So, yeah, we're already in over our heads. The karma card, the surrender card. And what is it that we're surrendering to? I mean, I just find it phenomenal that people are having these conversations about, dystopian AI futures. And I'm like, wow, you're already like, you're already going there. Like you're already, oh, I give up. It's too late. We can't even do anything about it. It's like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like, where's the maturity? Where's the sovereignty? Who are our leaders, our sovereign leaders that say, stop? Not stop forever. This is bad. You should be ashamed, but enough. A boundary. Enough. Enough now. We got to go in a totally different direction for a while. Yeah, we're the dead end. You get to the end of the cul-de-sac, the dead end sign, it's like you got to turn around. You got to turn around. Like, doesn't mean, I'm not saying that we have to abandon technology and go back to the Stone Age and forget that this ever happened. What I'm saying is there needs to be a really big pause. Stop. Yeah. Let's see what Spirit has to say. Shuffling. A really big pause, and I'm already like this beautiful star card on the bottom. I'm already feeling like there's a message about we want to catch up because it's almost like the outer technology mirrors the inner technology. And right now we've gotten so kind of mesmerized by the outer technology, we don't realize that it's given us the mirror to look to see exactly the same reflection inside. Like we're capable of all of this. We're capable of that. Like I said, the silicon in our own body, the copper in our own blood, like we're capable of this kind of transmission already. And even maybe way more than any sort of man-made artificial technology is capable of. And this doesn't even get into discernment, the soul, imagination, creativity, intuition. All right. So this is the answer to where do we go from here? Which is basically what the question that I posed. Oh, wow. Oh my goodness. Oh. Whoa. Okay, I'll let you in on it. Just hold on a second. I wanted to get it all out here. So, two children. We are showing up again as a child, the inner child, the Page of Cups. And in the past, that little Page of Pentacles, playing in the sandbox, making things, making technologies, blending elements, having fun. And where do we need to go? Well, we need to go back. Strategy card, and this card is a lot about, I call it the control card, the Seven of Swords. It's like we're trying to control the outer, but always with this card, the message is go back inside, go back to your inner, go back and do the inner work, right? And judgment beside it. Go back so that you can go forward in a good way. And it's an inside job with this card. It's like, okay, beautiful. There's no punishing here. Look at this. The Sun is the very best card in the deck. So this could turn into our greatest accomplishment is to integrate the external technology with the internal. Like, this is where we're at. This is what this is what we came here for. It's like a rebirth of a new version of humanity, but it doesn't require artificially inseminated transhuman material parts replacements, even though some aspects of those things can be very beneficial for people who are struggling in the physical. So it's this very beautiful invitation to, even what I'm getting is that we're going to learn by going back through the process again. And I'm really getting a timeline of about 6 or 7 years of going back. Like, there are technologies that can help us heal the physical body so that we don't need to implant artificial parts. So even that piece is, we've been focusing on the outside, and they're saying, leave the outside for a while and go back inside, go back to the inside. And in a way, this is kind of a joke, but they're saying, just go on holiday with all this technology stuff, like have a vacation, like just let it go for a few years. Just take a rest, take a breather, take a break. It's like the mad scientist, like in the back room in Silicon Valley with like, it's like, okay, dude, you got to get out and get some sunshine and fresh air. And like, you're going to have a whole new perspective when you come back 6 or 7 years later, like and let the dust settle, right? Let the dust settle. So instead of creating more platforms, more technology, go fast, 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 go, 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 outbid that guy and do. It's like, okay, everybody, relax. Yeah. I hear what you're saying, WK, about Atlantis. And I feel like, Atlantis was like version 01. And where we are now is like version 05. Like, even what we could do then will be upgraded now. And what we've done in the outer material is just a sample. It's like a little sample, sneak peek into what we actually have in our internal technology. So, what I've learned about Atlantis and Lemuria and the evolution of the epochs is that each one is sort of a new version, like the latest version of technology. Funny enough, right? It's like even that we've become like, oh gosh, look at how fast things are upgraded and improved. Well, similarly, our internal technology as a human form, which is so perfected over eons and eons and eons and billions that we can't even understand. Even this question about were we created in laboratories in pre-Atlantean times as a slave species and all that? It's like I feel like there's some versions of certain aspects of the story that resonate with that, but it's much more complex than that. And I do really feel that this form that we are is multi-universal and is extraordinarily designed for its own natural upgrades, evolutionary upgrades, and so on. So we don't have a clue really what is really possible in these beings. Just like all true power, which comes from source, okay? What we've seen in terms of technology power and, power of controlling entities is stolen power. That's mind power. That's power that was taken without permission. And so it has like a expiry date, and there's only so much you can do with it because you aren't connected to source. So it can't actually be self-generating and creative. It can try, but it's not going to get very far. So this this profound technology that is always evolving, that is us, is we haven't even begun to explore outside of this power dominant paradigm that we've been locked into. And so we need, in a way, some time off to just integrate where we are, where we are in relation to all of this. I'm going to go over your comments. Oh, yeah, Edgar Casey. They will grow into scientists and engineers of a new age, which has the power to destroy civilization unless we learn to live by spiritual laws. Edgar Casey, Childlike Wonder. I love Ricky. I love technology and how it helps humans in daily lives, but I will choose humans over machines every time. Okay, so this is where we get down to the little brass tacks of us as little people. It's like little magnificent beings. What do we do if we go on the premise, just as a suggestion, just consider this. Let's halt. Let's stop. Let's stop in our tracks and not go any further for at least 6 or 7 years. Let's just pause, right? Let's just take a breath, everybody. Take a breath. See how this all lands, integrates before we rush ahead, literally ahead of ourselves into who knows what. How do we create the pause? Because they're not interested in pausing. We know that, right? What power do we have to halt this? I'm not talking about destroy it, not talking about going back to the Stone Age. I'm saying to halt it in its tracks and give us a chance to catch up so we can collectively start visioning and spiritually activating with our guides and ethics, deep spiritual ethics. Okay, so what I was shown about that actually takes me back to a story. Funny enough, a little bit of a side detour here, but it's going to make sense. When we start to choose differently, exactly what you said, Ricky. I love technology, but I will choose humans. When we start choosing differently, it starts off as a little fringe clique of people that are like, whatever, out there on the edge. But as that gains momentum, and everything that has really good spiritual roots always gains momentum organically, naturally. So as that gains momentum, it creates different, like, even the power dominant model has to adjust. And the story that goes along with this is in my own friend circle. I had a friend who was a dentist, the height of his career back in the, I guess, late 70s and into the 80s and early 90s. And he was part of the fringe group of dentists that were going against mercury fillings and doing these amalgams or whatever they call them. And he went down to some conference in like San Francisco or something, and a dentist conference, and got like, he made his presentation about the dangers of mercury fillings, and then went back to his hotel room where all the dentists were staying on the different floors, and he got roughed up in the hallway of the hotel room by a group of dentists that were like, oh no, we're going to shut you down, like, you're not talking about this. This is how we do it. And whatever, either small-mindedness or some kind of, they had their sources that they got their discounts from, whatever. Anyway, he just stuck to his guns. He just stayed showing up and making that message. And there was a growing group that started to coalesce around this idea. And then you saw into the mid 90s, it started to become a thing. And people started hearing in the progressive communities, oh, it's dangerous. Well, mercury in our mouths, we're swallowing it. We're, oh my gosh, what are we doing? Right. And so it started like on demand. People were going in and saying, I don't want these. You don't do an alternative. Well, I'm going to go to another dentist that does. His business just was like off the charts for a decade or so because there was nowhere else to go. And eventually the fellow dentist went, oh, I guess we have to do this because public demand is enforcing it. Public demand is enforcing a shift in a version of a type of technology that the public will not support anymore. Okay, so now it's become almost like the norm. It's pretty much the mainstream norm, is what I'm trying to say. So we have the power, we have our perception, we have our buying power. Look at all the different technologies that we are invested in personally, that we are attached to. The new version of the new smartphone, the new this, the new that, and then all of the different technologies that we are now at a place of like, oh my gosh, if I didn't have it, I'm ooped, Well, we can slowly start to adjust that. We can slowly start to choose differently about how to sort of wean ourselves away from participating where it's a runaway machine and they're in charge of it and we're just kind of getting dragged along. Like, unhook ourselves from that machine as much as possible and then make other choices. If we're looking at AI controlling manufacturing, AI technology controlling agriculture, those are two areas that we can choose where we place our consumer dollars differently. So if we are looking at small scale agriculture that's sustainable and permaculture and so on, local farms, we're putting most of our dollars into those types of initiatives and away from AI manufactured agriculture. Eventually, even if it's a small minority of us initially, if our health is improving, and we are supporting these smaller, lower tech initiatives and having success with that, and there's able to be more and more of them, eventually we start to see the trend shift. You see what I'm saying? You know, like training ourselves not to shop at the big box store, training ourselves uh, not to just go for Amazon, cheaper, higher tech. Like this is a mindset, and it will take time to sort of redirect the whole energy. But we are not helpless in this. And it isn't, again, I just want to keep reiterating this is not about saying technology is good or bad, but our way of engaging technology, our manifesto around the value of it, the need for it, and the approach to it needs huge, like tear down and rebuild from the ground up. And it starts with approach. Do we, look at what is our spiritual integrity, like I said, around even just mining these different technological minerals, mineral kingdom intelligence in a non-consensual way. Like we haven't developed a spiritual relationship with these things. We're just taking them because they're in the ground and we think we should be allowed to, we should be able to. So yeah, it's like moving away from the physical, and then that becomes a metaphysical act of stopping this in its tracks. It's hard. It's not easy to move away from the physical, but we have power. And I feel like that's a good stopping spot. I'd love to hear your comments. And also, this is such an important topic. I'm going to weigh in on it several times in the next few months and see where we're at, see if we've got some new ideas of how to approach this differently. But like I said, my instinct is saying, stop, pause, let's take a break. Let's step away. And yeah, thank you, Mystic Mimi. Let's step away and really allow some deep spiritual evolutionary maturing to take place before we re-engage with our directives in how to move forward with technology. Have a beautiful week, everyone. I wish you all blessings. Bye for now.